Tunguska, the explosion with no cause. When the sky shattered and the world never found an answer. 1. The morning. The Earth almost ended. 7:17 in the morning. June 30th, 1908. The Siberian wilderness of Russia, a place so remote even the wind seemed reluctant to visit, lay sunk in the slumber of early dawn. Indigenous Evenki hunters were kindling fires to boil water. A herd of reindeer grazed silently on the steppe. The air was crystal clear, the sun just peeking through the canopies of thousand-year-old Siberian pines. Then the sky tore open. A blue-white blaze, no, not light, something that transcended the very concept of light, erupted and flooded the entire horizon. The Evenki people living in the hills beyond the Tunguska River watched a strangely colored streak slash across the sky in a near-vertical plunge. They stood watching for about 10 minutes. Then a blinding flash erupted, followed by an earth-shattering explosion that hurled them to the ground. Not a single explosion, but a rapid chain of blasts, as though the sky itself were shattering piece by piece. The shock wave felled approximately 80 million. Trees across an area of 2,150 kilometers were nearly the size of a small European nation. Every tree within 18 kilometers of the epicenter was incinerated. Every living creature within 100 kilometers, birds, animals, insects, microorganisms, was wiped completely from the face of the earth. Buildings 900 kilometers away developed cracks. Weather stations as far as England shook as if struck by a massive earthquake. Even instruments in Australia registered the shock waves. The blast's destructive force was estimated at between 10 and 20 million tons of TNT. To put that in perspective, the atomic bomb the Americans dropped on Hiroshima in 1945 was equivalent to just 13,000 to 16,000 tons of TNT. The Tunguska explosion was thousands of times more powerful. Had the explosion occurred just a few minutes later, as the Earth rotated slightly further, it would have obliterated the entire city of St. Petersburg and killed millions. And yet, and this is what has kept scientists awake at night, nothing was found. No impact crater, no debris, no metal, no evidence, only devastation and silence. Dured 19 years of silence, and the first man brave enough to enter. Strangely, the world had almost forgotten. The Tunguska region was too distant, too remote. No roads, no railways, no telegraph lines. The Evenki survivors, the indigenous people who had witnessed it firsthand, did speak of it. But they spoke in their own language, in images that the modern civilized world could not comprehend. They called it Agdi, their thunder god, unleashed in fury. They said the sky had opened, and from within it stepped something that did not belong to this world. It took 19 years before Soviet scientist Leonid Kulik led the first expedition to set foot in that land. What he found left him speechless. Tens of millions of enormous pine trees, ancient giants that would take 3 or 4 people to embrace, lay flattened in a single direction, as though someone had swept a colossal broom across the land. But the strangest detail, at the very epicenter, some trees still stood upright, stripped of every last branch. They stood like bare poles, completely denuded, suggesting the force of the blast had come from directly above, straight down. Kulik also discovered that the swampy terrain was riddled with craters the size of entire rooms. He was almost certain these were the marks of a meteorite. He began to dig. He dug and dug. He dug for years, returning 3 times until his health gave out. He found nothing. Not a single meteorite fragment. Not a gram of cosmic metal. Not a drop of water from a comet. Nothing at all. Leonid Kulik died in 1942, carrying the greatest unanswered question of his life with him to the grave. Third, traces that defy explanation. In 1957, nearly half a century after the explosion, a group of Soviet scientists decided to approach the problem differently. Instead of searching for debris, they examined soil and vegetation. The results chilled them to the bone. Radioactivity levels in the Tunguska region were 1.5 times higher than in areas only 30-40 kilometers away. When they analyzed tree growth rings, they discovered something anomalous. After 1908, tree growth accelerated dramatically, as though the trees had suddenly received a mysterious energy source, pushing them to grow many times faster than normal. More significantly, in the ring corresponding to the year 1908, there were radioactive traces of a highly emissive dust layer. This was 1908. Not a single nation on Earth, including the most advanced powers, possessed anything capable of producing such radiation. The first atomic bomb in human history was detonated in 1945, 37 years after Tunguska. So where did that radiation come from? IV, the theories, from science to the supernatural. Since then, hundreds of theories have been proposed. Each has its logic. Each has its flaws. Not a single one, even to this day, can fully explain everything that happened. Theory 1. A comet or asteroid. This is the most mainstream theory, supported by conventional science, that a large celestial body, either rock or ice, plunged into the atmosphere and exploded at roughly 8-kilometer altitude before reaching the ground. But even this mainstream theory cannot answer the most fundamental question: where are the fragments? An object large enough to produce an explosion equivalent to thousands of atomic bombs cannot simply vanish without a trace. Theory 2. Nikola Tesla and his death ray. This is the theory many dismiss as far-fetched, yet it contains details so unsettling they cannot be entirely dismissed. At the time of the 1908 Tunguska explosion, the famous explorer Admiral Robert Peary was camped on Ellesmere Island, preparing to conquer the North Pole. Tesla had made cryptic statements about communicating with Peary somehow, and had asked Peary to watch the tundra for anything unusual. Proponents of the Tesla theory argue that this eccentric genius intended to fire a beam of energy toward the North Pole to create a spectacular light display, but miscalculated. The beam went off course and caused the Tunguska explosion. According to one version of the story, after the explosion occurred, Tesla learned of it through telegraph reports and realized the terrible thing he had done. He quietly dismantled the Wardenclyffe Tower, the greatest wireless energy transmission machine he had ever built, and abandoned it entirely. Coincidence or not, the Wardenclyffe Tower was demolished in 1917. Tesla never explained why. There are stranger details still. Not a single astronomer, professional or amateur, anywhere on Earth recorded any fireball entering the atmosphere. The sound of the explosion spread in multiple directions with diminishing intensity, not the pattern of a meteorite. No fragments fell from the sky, no impact crater, but there were electromagnetic and magnetic disturbances lasting many days across all of Europe. All of those signatures are entirely consistent with what Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower could have produced. Theory 3. An extraterrestrial spacecraft. Soviet scientist Alexei Zolotov spent 17 years investigating the Tunguska event before reaching his conclusion. The explosion was caused by an extraterrestrial spacecraft powered by a nuclear engine that detonated due to a technical malfunction. Eyewitnesses, mostly indigenous, Evenki and Russian settlers, described a fireball tearing across the sky at 7:17 a.m. One said the sky seemed to split in two. Another recounted that the heat from the explosion made their clothes feel as though they were on fire. Many witnesses described a dark cloud gradually collapsing into a shape resembling a disc or shallow bowl, pierced through by an extraordinarily intense beam of light. A farmer in Kirinsk recorded, "I saw a column of fire shaped like a spear. Not the shape of a rock or a block of ice. A spear. In 2004, a Russian expedition team claimed to have found mysterious objects, metal of unknown origin, beneath the floor of the Tunguska swamp. The test results for those metal fragments have never been fully published. Theory 4. Black holes and antimatter. These are theories few dare voice aloud, yet they haunt many theoretical physicists. That what struck the Earth was not ordinary matter, but antimatter, or a microscopic black hole. When antimatter contacts ordinary matter, they annihilate each other and release an enormous amount of energy, leaving no physical trace whatsoever. This perfectly explains why no debris was ever found. But it also raises a more terrifying question. Where did the antimatter come from? The only thing, within the bounds of human knowledge, capable of creating and controlling antimatter is a civilization far more advanced than our own. 5. Mysteries. Science cannot explain. There are details about the Tunguska event that even the most rational scientists cannot dismiss. First, the night sky glowed bright across Europe and Asia for many days. After the explosion, the night sky over all of Europe was as bright as twilight. People could sit and read by the light of the night sky without any candle or lamp. Second, no witness saw a meteorite. Not a single astronomer anywhere on Earth observed a celestial body moving toward Siberia on that night or that morning. This is almost impossible if it truly was a meteorite large enough to cause such a colossal explosion. Third, the approach direction makes no sense. Witnesses at different locations described something moving in different directions. Some said it came from the south. Others said it came from the east. This is impossible for a celestial body following a straight trajectory. But it is entirely possible if the object was changing its flight path. Fourth, animals vanished in a strange manner. The Evenki recalled that many reindeer and wild animals did not merely die, they disappeared entirely, leaving no bones or carcasses, as though they had been transported away rather than destroyed. B. The Evenki and the truth they kept secret. Few realize that the Evenki, the indigenous people living closest to the explosion site, have oral traditions radically different from anything science has recorded. They did not call it a falling meteorite. They called it Ogdi, their thunder god, who had come to visit the land. More significantly, according to their legends, before the explosion occurred, some livestock and even some tribal members had experienced strange dreams for weeks, dreams of light falling from the sky, of figures that were not human, of voices speaking in no human tongue. After the explosion, the land at the epicenter was regarded by the Evenki as sacred, ground absolutely forbidden. No one was permitted to approach, not because they feared radiation or physical danger, but because they believed the place was a gateway, a door between this world and another, and that door might not have fully closed. 7. The question no one dares answer. More than 115 years have passed since that fateful morning in Siberia. We now have satellites. We have the Hubble telescope seeing to the edge of the universe. We have computers billions of times more powerful than the human brain. And we still do not know what happened at Tunguska. Not because we haven't looked hard enough, but because each time we look, we discover yet more things that cannot be explained by any natural law we know. Perhaps the answer does not lie in a laboratory. Perhaps it lies in the dreams of the Evenki, in the strange lights that illuminated Europe's night sky for many days, in the unexplained demolition of Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower. And perhaps, just perhaps, there is a reason this answer has been kept secret. Because if the answer were truly revealed, it would not merely change what we think about the Tunguska explosion. It would change everything we think about ourselves, about our place in the universe, and about whether we are truly alone. Tunguska still stands there, silent, waiting, as though it knows that humanity is not yet ready to hear the truth.